Hey, welcome to God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. So glad you could join me on another episode of Men's Conversations and Stories. So whether this be your first time joining us or whether you've been listening since the beginning, I want to welcome you all. I hope that you can get comfortable, whether you're out walking the dog right now, whether you're riding around your car, whether you're just sitting back, relaxing on the couch. I hope that you can prepare yourself for the blessing you're going to experience in this episode. The blessing of vulnerability, which is such a blessing coming from a lot of the men I sit down with. I hope that you can imagine yourself sitting with this community of like-minded folk who care about you, and hopefully they want you to not only feel God's love, but more importantly, and I feel this is so important, we hope that you can see God's glory in men's real stories. So today on this episode, I have a special guest as always. This guest, I have a story that comes behind how I met this guy. And I felt like God was totally setting it up to where he made sure I met this gentleman, because not only was I introduced to him once, I was introduced to him twice. I ran into somebody in the filming of an episode, and they were like, there's a guy you've got to meet. Matter of fact, I was just with him and he was talking to some young men at Auburn University. And so he connected the dots for me. And then I was at another event where I was serving with somebody. And as we were talking, they were like, you've got to meet this guy. He's in the same space as you, with talking to men, the importance of mental health and different things like that. And I was like, okay, so what's his name? And as she was saying it, I was like, it wasn't by chance be this. And she was like, yeah, that's him. And I'm like, okay, this is really ironic that I have been introduced or I have been tried to be connected twice now with the same guy, even though I've already met with him. We've had lunch, but he has truly been a blessing to so many people. So let me just jump right in and introduce him. He is the podcast host of The Rabbit Hole. He's a brother who's out doing a lot of great things, setting up a lot of great stories with men and women on how they are pioneering and moving through life, working through a lot of their own struggles and different things. I'd like to welcome my good friend Charles Hite III to the table, to the episode. Thanks so much for joining today, man. Yes, sir.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. Yeah, it's normally me interviewing and having guests on, so it's different, and I enjoy this.
Right. So what's it like being on the other side of the table now, where you kind of...
It's less nerve-wracking.
Okay.
But I enjoy it.
Now you get to just sit back and kind of talk. You don't have to remember any questions. Did I skip that line, right?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
It's different. I like it. I enjoy this side.
Okay, well, cool. We'll start off by telling the people a little bit about yourself, like where you're from. Just give them a little blip about yourself.
So Charles Hite, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. Was born at Presbyterian Hospital. So if you're from Charlotte, most people were born at Presbyterian Hospital.
Yeah.
Presby. Yep. Presby baby.
Yeah.
Born in 91. Missed April Fools by 37 minutes.
Okay.
So that's a little fun fact.
Nice.
But public school up until 6th grade, and then went to Covenant Day School in Matthews, 7th through 12th, Gardner-Webb for 1 year, and switched and went to Appalachian State, graduated from there. And 2012 is kind of where my life kind of changed, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But born into a Christian family, so became a Christian at age 5. 2 loving parents, amazing sisters, 2.5 years younger than me. But I had to go and figure out life for myself. I thought, you go to college, after college, you get the job, you get married, and life's perfect. Well, I learned the hard way. It's not that way.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for that, because it's made me who I am today. I've had a lot of growth. I wouldn't be sitting here 10 years ago. I would have maybe said I'll be here and then canceled last minute because something better came up or something. I was very flaky, and I was living for fun and, chasing that next high, whatever that high may be, drugs, girls, you name it.
Wow.
And so that's part of my story, which we'll talk about. And started the Rabbit Hole show October 12th of 2021, so a little over a year ago.
Okay.
And the wake-up call that I needed I'd had several along the way, but the wake up call I really needed happened April 24th of last year.
Okay.
So a little over a year and a half ago.
Well, we'll do this. Tell us a little bit about the Rabbit Hole Show, what it's all about, and what made you start that.
So the Rabbit Hole Show, like you said, it's for men, women, and we even had a high school student that or just graduated high school came on and shared his story. Everyone has a story. Some stories aren't as powerful or as big as my story is, and I hope your story's not like mine. But I had to walk through the story that God, took me on and allowed me. I created for myself to figure out how precious life is. But everyone has a story. We all have struggles, and the good news is you're not alone in that struggle. Everyone's got something they're dealing with. But for me, I thought I was the only one going through that stuff, and so I suppressed and just pushed everything down, and it only made it worse to where, things that were traumatic, it only just kept getting worse. People ask or look at me and say, why did you do that? And for me, it was, I always compared myself to the people I grew up with. I'm not going to be successful like they are. I'm not going to have that job because I struggled in school and academics weren't easy for me. And then when I was in the rehab rooms, the treatment centers, all that, well, my story's not bad enough. So I was shooting myself in the foot until my story got bad enough.
Oh, wow.
And that was the wake-up call I needed, and I thank God for that every day. Because without that, I don't know where I would be. I would either be dead, in prison, or on the streets, which are three places that, I should be.
Right.
But God's got a plan for me and purpose still.
No, definitely. And more importantly, he's already kind of put you in place of part of in his, as far as your plan or his purpose for you. He's already kind of started to navigate that even with your show. And for those that don't know, you can definitely hear a lot of Charles's story, his ongoing story on his podcast as he continues to talk to guests, as he continues to unfold different things of his story. And I'm even going to have him tell a little bit about his story today. But more importantly, I want to kind of jump into other parts of his story because a lot of people have either met you, you've spoken to a lot of people, especially in the Charlotte community and other communities as you've grown your own community. But I think that a lot of people would not only glean a lot from your story or what you've been through, but also where you're at now, because a lot of people sometimes think, wow, he made it through this, that, that's a powerful story. And he rode off into the sunset. And it's like, well, my story's still going and it's not quite done yet. And it's not as pretty as people would think, because a lot of times people don't want to tell their story till it is pretty. People don't want to put the pictures up until it is pretty. I don't want to tell you what I went through before this. I don't want to show you what I went through before this. I just kind of want you to see the end results. Surprise, look at me now. And it's like, yeah, but is it going to be that simple for me? Will I just go from here to there? And I never saw the middle. I never saw what happened in between. So that's always important. Some people need to understand the struggles that we go through to get to where they may see us now. So I want to kick it back over to you to kind of let you tell a little bit of your story and where or what, more importantly, who Charles is and what Charles has experienced that got him to this point of sitting here at this table with me today.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. It's an honor to come on your show and sit on this side of a podcast, but have a lot of respect for you and your vulnerability and all the guests that you've had on your show. It's just an honor to sit on this side and be a part of your podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm honored. Yes, sir.
So briefly, my story, and like Robert said, go check out the Rabbit Hole Show if you want to hear more of my story in depth. Episode 23 is a good one to check out. It's where I have my parents on and they share their journey within my journey. And then episode 50 is another good one to check out to hear a little more in depth. But last year, as I mentioned, my wake-up call. So February of last year, I had an incident and should have gotten arrested and got hit by a car during that incident. and got COVID a week later and was very depressed. I'd been hanging out with some community that wasn't the best, and it showed. And so I got very depressed again and reached out to a treatment center that had been in Charlotte prior, Hopeway, off Sharon Road West, and they said, no, we're not going to have you back. And looking back now, I understand why.
Right.
And they recommended me to a place in Tennessee, the Ranch. Went there, completed it, and learned about acceptance. And my past, I can't undo my past. I can only enjoy and be here in the moment. And I can prepare for the future, but I can't dwell on the past. I can reflect and grow from it. And the Lord had me, learn another lesson 1 hour after I got out of rehab. I got arrested on some felony charges and was facing prison time and sat in jail for a few weeks and was able to get a plea deal. And I was like, okay, that's what I needed. That was my wake-up call. Now I'm going to start living how I'm supposed to.
Right.
25 days later, I went on my last bender, and my drug of choice was cocaine. Started with Adderall and then cocaine, and even got into some meth. And yeah, that was the last thing I remember. I remember the sun coming up, and next thing I remember, I waking up a few days later with a ventilator, and my dad on my left saying, "You died from an overdose." And I just remember looking at that clock saying, wow. Two things I said would never happen to me was prison, and I was facing prison time. And there's a part of the story that I haven't really talked about because there's someone else involved, but he decided not to press charges. And if he had, I would be in prison right now for 10 years at least, maybe longer, I don't know. But his grace and mercy was a blessing, and that allowed me to be like God's grace and mercy on my life. Just a small glimpse of man showing me grace, and just how much grace God has shown me when he doesn't have to show me anything, because all I deserve is death. And I remember waking up off life support, family in the room, and just like, wow, if I want to be here and I want to have that wife, the kids, have a successful life. And to me, success isn't necessarily money. It's just my reputation, what I'm giving back in the community. I'm not going to have that if I don't make a change. Two things I said weren't going to happen within a month and a half of each other. So that was the wake-up call I needed. And here's a picture of it. If you can see that. That's me on life support with my mom looking over me. But that's something I'll never forget, and something that I keep on my phone so I can look at that and remember how bad I had it, how close I was to death.
Right.
They coded me and woke up. So to me, I'm not done. God's not done with me. I have purpose.
Right.
To go back, though, I said I struggled in school, always compared myself to others, looked at myself as a failure. So I was always had that negative self-talk about myself. 2012, had a close family friend die that shocked the community, and that was a struggle, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And I turned to drugs and alcohol and partying, something that I had done in college, being in a fraternity, but it was social. This turned to, all right, we're going to do it social, and then I would become an angry person and take it out on everyone because I never talked about my feelings. I didn't know how to.
Right.
So I literally just pushed everything down, and things in my life just kept happening, and I just never talked about it. I wanted girls to love me, and I wanted guys to fear me. And that's how I lived. I wasn't going to let anyone push me around. So if you looked at me the wrong way, if I was at a bar or out, I wasn't going to take that. I was just going to swing on you.
Right. Wow.
And that's not a way to live, So I've 8 rehabs, 5 psych wards, been arrested 4 times, and suicide was always on my mind. So it's a blessing that I'm still here, and that, to me, God's not done with me, and I still have a lot of purpose left.
Right.
So that's a quick little version of my story.
As I always tell everybody, I really appreciate your vulnerability, because a lot of people feel like it's already hard to admit or open up to to people about what they're going through. And sometimes that's a fear of a lot of people because there's a lot of shame and guilt that's involved in that. So, my community, we appreciate your vulnerability and your story of what you've been through, or even recognizing, because as I say, it's in recognizing and acknowledging that there is an issue, or there is a problem, or there is something that needs to be addressed, that you can even begin to work on or heal what you've gone through. And you even admitting how at one time you had a friend that passed away, and how that ended up playing out in your life, and that it became more of a thing where, like, wow, I don't know how to quite handle this. I don't know. And I'm just curious, this is a question for you. When your friend died, were there any people that came around to say, hey, look, maybe you should find somebody to talk to about that? Or maybe like, I know a lot of people are like, hey, look, man, really sorry about your friend. Hope that, you can push on, and you got this, and you're going to man up and move through this, and you're going to be strong, man. But was there anybody that ever came or saw the importance of you talking to somebody, or you maybe talking about how you really felt, how your friend dying, how it affected you in any way or anything like that, even before certain patterns or certain things started to pick up?
I think it would have been easier if I was in Charlotte, but I was still at Appalachian State when this happened in school. I was in a fraternity. And so, I had people who were there to support and comfort me. But no, I never really had anyone say, maybe you should go and talk to someone, because I was away from my family and community in Charlotte. So it was easier to hide my struggles. But then once I graduated, a year later, I think it was, because I graduated December of 2013, and it happened October of 2012. Coming home, I was still living like I was in college, and still dealing with my pain in the same way that I did in college, and that continued up until last year.
Okay. So basically, a lot of it was, we're here for you, but the best coping mechanism we have for you is maybe like, hey, look, bro, you want another beer? Or, hey, bro, you want to,
They didn't have to ask me for another beer. I was taking it. Okay. But yes, right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would get, when I would get to a certain point of, intoxication or whatever, I would get emotional. So I'd be fun, and then the switch would happen. And I would either be real emotional, upset, sad, or I would just get real angry and become a violent person, which is not who I am.
Right.
But that's, I didn't know how to handle my emotions and the pain that I was going through. And then that pain, because I didn't deal with it in an appropriate way, healthy coping mechanisms, it caused other things to happen in my life that were traumatic and caused legal trouble, and just suicide, like I mentioned earlier, was always on my mind, because I just didn't know how to deal with anything that happened in my life. Life was tough for me to deal with.
Wow. No, I can imagine. So I guess let's jump into present day, Charles. There have been so many different things that you have learned, so many different things that you've experienced, and you had a wake up call, as you said, that you showed the picture of. Since then, what has Charles done to really pour back into himself, to allow you to not only get the help that a lot of us need to be able to pour into us in so many different areas of self-love? And it's funny, I had to Google that a while back ago, because as a man, you think, when you
I'm
think
laughing
of
too, because I'm the same way. Not because you had to do it. I didn't know what self-love was.
Right. It's almost like, as a man, we think self-love, and we think to maybe like Google, all right, what does self-love look like for a man? Is that a thing? And so, a lot of times we don't know how to love ourselves the way we love others. So as you have continued to progress in your present day, what are some of the things that you do now to to make sure you're pouring into you the way you may have poured into others?
Just being open and honest with my community, the people in my circle. Last night, me and you were on the phone prior to talking about, tonight's episode. And then I had some stuff happen recently that I opened up and shared with you, whereas the old me would have just hidden that and been embarrassed and ashamed. And I'm not going to tell anybody this.
Right.
But once I bring that to the surface, Satan's got no hold on me. And that's something that I've learned, whereas before I called my mom when I was in trouble, when I was getting arrested, or had just gotten out of the hospital, or what, you name it, whatever it was. But now I'm calling her when I'm starting to have these thoughts or I'm starting to feel anxiety or whatever. And I'm not going in my room and turning the TV on and putting the lights down low and getting under the covers. I'm going over to my parents' house or hanging out with my sister or reaching out to people that are in my community group at church. So I'm being around like-minded people, and I'm getting involved in my community rather than hiding. And the old me, I didn't like going to church because I was ashamed and thought people would judge me. But then I didn't want to go to treatment centers or be around those types of people because I thought my story wasn't bad enough.
Okay. Now, I heard you say that earlier. My story's not bad enough. It's not big enough to actually fit into this category. So either I've got to reach their caliber of story, like, oh, it's got to be huge. So when I get here, it's like I got an impressive story to tell you guys about like what got me here. Or it's like, well, no, I can't go and hang out with you guys because my story's not quite big enough yet. What was it, almost like a fuel to say, I have to work on making sure my story is big enough to fit the mode of, well, yeah, when you reach this place, when you go here, you got to make sure your story, almost like a person feeling like, okay, if I go to prison, I can't show up and tell them I'm here because I just stole some candy off the store. No, my story's got to be big. I kidnapped a person. I held a person at gun. Why I took the candy off the shelf and took some money out the register. My story's got to be grandeur. So why did you feel that way?
Because it started off with me comparing myself to the people I grew up with and went to school with. I'm not good enough. I'm going to be a failure because I'm not getting the grades that they got. I'm not going to Chapel Hill or the schools they're going to. I have to work twice as hard to get that C when they're studying 30 minutes and getting that A. And so when I was in my first treatment center, I was like, well, my story's not like this guy. But then, and I never wanted it to get to there, but that was just always in the back of my head. So like I said earlier, I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Just to make
Which
sure.
way am I going to go, right or left? I'm comparing myself to both ends of the spectrum.
Right. No, I see what
So
you're
I wasn't
saying.
planning on getting it that bad, but it eventually got that bad.
Right.
And so now I have that story that I was like, huh.
Okay, now I got a good story for you guys. I'm back, and my story has escalated.
Correct.
And it's going to blow you away now. And it's like, I may not fit into that category if I'm hearing you correctly. I may not be able to fit into that category with the people I grew up with because I'm not them. But if I'm going to be in this community, I'm going to make sure I fit in well with you guys because my story now kind of matches a lot of what you guys are doing. Because sometimes in life, we want to fit in somewhere. We want to be a part of something.
And it's not always the good community you're fitting in with.
Right. No, that's a good point.
And you don't want to, you want to compare and be around like-minded people. So if you are comparing yourself, they can help you attain those goals or those dreams that you aspire to reach. You don't want to, for me, I wasn't doing myself any justice by comparing myself and keeping that internal.
Right.
No one was helping me.
Right.
And that's not to their fault. That's my fault.
Well, the thing is they were trying to find help themselves. And a lot of times we can't help the next person if we're still hurt ourselves.
Correct.
It's hard to help you because if I could help you, then I could probably use the same skills to help myself. But I'm here to hopefully get help myself from what I'm fighting. So in present day, along with, making sure that you're working on talking about the things that you're dealing with, who is your community, or how do you go about, I know you said you talk to your family. Who else do you normally find? I know you had told me about other communities or different or other, I guess, tools that you use. Tell me about some of those.
Yeah. So family, as you mentioned, I've mentioned, big for me, because they're the ones who should have turned their back on me, but they didn't. Without them, I would be on the streets dead or in prison where I should be. And they taught me a lot along the way. But the Barn Brothers is a community that I go to on Tuesday nights. One of the guys, he owns AAA windows, and he was cleaning my parents' windows, or I think my mom called the office, and he happened to answer. It's a God thing. He happened to answer the phone. He owns the business. He's always out meeting clients, and she was like, just started sharing my story, or kind of the predicament I had gotten myself into. I think I was in jail at this point, or might have been a rehab, and he was like, you know what? I'm in a group called the Barn Brothers. We meet on Tuesday nights. I think your son, could benefit from coming out. It's a guys, sorry ladies, it's men's only, but it's just guys who needing people to do life with, got other guys to do life with.
Right.
No one's perfect. We all have a story. We all got struggles, and that's what this group is basically.
Right.
You're not alone. Everyone's got a different struggle, different story. And so we meet on Tuesday nights in a barn. That's why it's called the Barn Brothers.
Okay.
And just share our life struggles, our life stories, and just help each other do life. And so that's a big community.
That's important.
Correct. And then I'd say since March of this year, when Casey, the guy who helps me do my podcast, and I met him at the Dilworth Center in 2016, which was the first outpatient center I went to, treatment center. Met him there, and I only did 7 weeks of that program. After 7 weeks, I was like, I'm out.
Okay.
And my mom, if you ask her, she would say, I could tell you were already checked out before you even told us. But so me and him got our place in March of this year, and that's when I started getting back into going to church and making that just habitual. I mean, church is outside the four walls of the church building, but just getting and going and getting that learning every Sunday. And since then, I've joined a community group within the church, and we meet on Monday nights. So that's another community and some guys that I've really kind of met and grown with, and even some girls that are in the group. But there's some good guys that I've really connected with outside of that group. And then there's some guys from my fraternity in college that I'm still very close with who didn't turn their back on me when a lot of people that I grew up with know or have met along the way that kind of threw in that white towel and just said, bro, the way you're living, I just can't associate with you, which I understand, and no hard feelings.
Right.
People come into your life for a season, and some are there for a long time or your whole life. And I have some really, really good friends who have been there through everything with me, and they're in my inner circle, and they're a big part of my community. And I might not see them every day, every week, every month, but I'm talking to them regularly.
Okay.
And then just the people I meet, just being open about my past and my story.
Now, do you feel like and I know you talk to a lot of men, and I tell people sometimes our story or our vulnerability isn't meant, or sharing isn't meant for everybody, because some people may not be in a place to even have the space for that, as they're going through their own struggles. How important have you found, I know that you would, it previously told me about how counseling was another piece that you kind of found important, and a lot of people are kind of like, counseling, that's where I stop. I got my own community. I got people I can talk to, but sometimes outside of people holding space for you to be able to open up about things, sometimes we need someone that kind of can shepherd us in certain directions, and not so much that they're providing advice, but they're providing almost like a safe space to not only be able to unpack, but also kind of like navigate us, similar to the way God navigates us as a shepherd of us all, and that he can kind of keep us on the right path when he sees us veering off. Sometimes he can let us know, hey, look, I got you. I'll leave the 99 to come and get you, because I need to kind of shepherd you back in. I've noticed you kind of gotten off track, and sometimes that hurts. that the way he yanks us back, or the way he slams that door as we're about to walk into it, or already in it, it hurts the way he may have to pull us back to shepherd us back into the flock. But how important do you feel as far as speaking about therapy as a man going to therapy? How important have you felt that's played in your process of moving through things?
Everyone needs to go to therapy.
Okay.
I mean, I could just drop the mic and say that's it, but because I used to be a person who said, therapy, what is therapy? Well, I don't need therapy. And I think the first time I ever saw a therapist was 2016. I was dating a girl, and she said, you need to go see a therapist.
Now, what was your response? How did you feel? Like, what was your first thing that came to your mind when somebody said, hey, you should go to therapy or you should see a therapist? What was that thing that you would probably respond back with?
Well, prior to her, my mom had saying, maybe you could go talk to someone. I said, nah, I'm good. I'm fine. And we all know what fine means.
Right.
And if you don't, ask somebody, because fine doesn't mean you're fine.
I'm fine is the easy answer to give people when they only have like 2 minutes for you to give an answer. It's like, hey, in passing, hey, how you doing, John? I'm fine. Oh, yeah, I'm good. I mean, because nobody actually, not nobody, but a lot of people don't have the space or the time to actually get the long answer. They want that short answer. And they want you to, if you feel like it, ask them back. But they were just doing it because they didn't want to like walk past you and not say anything. So, hey, how you doing? And it's like,
fine. And I think it might have even been last night at the barn. Someone said fine stands for F is for frustrated, I is for irritated, N is, I can't remember what he said N was, and E was emotional. So if someone says fine, it's like, okay, now what's going on?
Right.
You're not really fine. And some people, they might be, they're just giving you that answer because they have to feel like they have to answer. But a lot of times you're not fine.
Yeah.
And that was my response. I'm fine. I'm good. When really, I wanted to die.
But there's a long answer for everything. And
Correct.
And a lot of people wouldn't know what to do with your long answer, which is why it is important to find people who can take your long answer and say, you know what? That's cool. I'm glad you could admit that. I'm glad that you could actually say, it's more than just fine, because fine is a generic answer we give most folk because it fits the bill. And more importantly, maybe my shame won't allow me to tell you what's really going on. Maybe the guilt in the moment of what has transpired won't allow me to really tell you what just happened. So I'm fine is going to cover the bill for you. Mm-hmm. I'm good. Are you really? Yeah, no. Great, cool. Okay, cool. And I can appreciate any person that says, actually, you know what? I got space today. You want to talk about anything? You know, anything further than just you're fine? Because I'm sure you are fine. But what else is going on in your life? So what else is going? So I'll take that to spin into what else is going on in Charles's life these days. What is Charles experiencing in your current life, even after everything that you've been through, even as the podcast host of The Rabbit Hole? What are you currently going through? What are some of the struggles you're seeing?
And to answer the question prior to finish the question before I answer that one.
Okay.
When the girlfriend, so my mom had mentioned before, and I said, I'm fine, I don't need to talk to anyone. Then the girlfriend said, you need to go see a therapist, because I think I had gotten arrested for the second time maybe, and ended up in Billingsley, the psych ward for the first time. And I was codependent in every relationship up until my last relationship. So when she said therapy, or she was going to break up with me, I said, okay, which therapist you want me to go to? You know, but that's what I needed, because that got me in the door to see someone. And then he left and went to Nashville, and I had to go find other therapists, and I felt like I had to prepare more to go to therapy than what I was getting out of it. So therapy is like dating. You got to find the therapist that's going to work for you. And that's not to knock the therapist.
I'm so glad you said that.
You're paying the therapist. What's the point of going to therapy if you're not going to get anything out of it?
Right. Or if you're not going to put anything into it. Like,
correct.
Because,
don't go to therapy if you're going to just go and sit there and pay $170 to whatever it is an hour. That's a waste of money.
Right.
Get something out of it.
Right.
It's just like dating or married. Do you want to marry that girl if it's just, it's all right?
Right.
No.
Right.
So find the therapist that works for you. And it took me finding a lot of therapists, or firing a lot of therapists, as I would say, to find the therapist that I have now, Dr. Robert Dodd, who I've been seeing 5 years, I believe, and it's Level Ground Christian Therapy, I believe, over near Charlotte Catholic. Him and his wife, Cindy, have a practice. But he worked in the prison systems of Tennessee for 20 years. He's ran treatment centers. He's amazing, and he's a gentle giant, but I don't want to cross him, you know. And I've tried to slip things by him, thinking, okay, I got it off my chest. He's not going to remember that. But then when I get done, he goes, oh, let's tap back into what you said. And I'm like, I wrote it down. You know, he didn't even write it down.
Oh wow, that's good.
He's got it up here. Nice. I'm just like, oh, all right.
By the way, I wanted to go back to what you said, firing. You know, I wouldn't say, because a lot of people are scared to fire people. Okay. You know what I would say? It's like speed dating, where it's like, oh, you know what? I appreciate your time. I'm going to try a different one. And that's okay. A lot of therapists are used to that. Matter of fact, they would prefer you find the right person for you. They don't take it personal, because a lot of people that are seeking therapy, they're experiencing that now. They're like, I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable with this person.
They keep going. Yeah. And don't schedule another appointment. They'll get the hint. It's not like you have to be like, oh, I'm not.
Wait a minute, did you just say ghost them?
In a roundabout way, I said ghost them.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, you can take that approach, but the most important part you said is you're paying them. So at any point when you feel like this is not a good fit for you, you should definitely say, you know what, let me go find somebody, whether it be that I'm more comfortable with, whether it be that, you know, I don't have to explain my story as in depth, because some people, they don't click well with therapists because they're maybe it's not a cultural good fit. You know, what I'm talking about, I'm having to break down what these certain words mean in my culture. You know, every time he's like, you know what, let me go and look in the Urban Dictionary real quick to understand what you're saying. You know, yeah, I mean, there's sometimes you need somebody that understands you without you having to explain, who understands where you're coming from, can speak your language and say, yeah, no, I get it. I get it. So no, I appreciate you.
And that's why Dr. Dodd's amazing, because one of my sister's good friends told her about Dr. Dodd, and me and her on, you know, dealing with much different issues that he's helped us with. So he's done it. He can do it all. And his wife, they're both amazing. But yeah, you got to find the right therapist, and one that's going to help you. And like you said, not have to look up in the Urban Dictionary or speak your lingo, and you know. So it's like speed dating, because you want to get something out of it. That's why you're paying and going to therapy. But everyone, I think, can benefit from therapy. No. But you got to find the right therapist. Right. So to go to what is Charles doing now, what are some struggles that I have? I've been out of work for 2 months. The old me would have hidden that and said, oh, I'm in between jobs, you know, or I would have had some cover story of why I don't have a job, or I would have been very vague to where you would have thought I had a job. But no, I got laid off 2 months ago, and to me, it was just a job. It wasn't a career, and I made that known when I first started, because 2019, or I guess 2018, I had been in psychosis for, I don't know, 4 to 6 months just because of the drugs and staying up 2 to 3 days at a time, sleeping 4 or 5 hours, and because I was in a job that I saw as a career, and I just poured everything into that. And that, to me, that was an escape. I think we were talking last night, addiction. It doesn't just have to be drugs, alcohol, porn. Right. It can be work, school, basketball, you name it. There can be an addiction. Right. Even couponing. Oh, that show on TLC or something, Coupon Queens or something, you know. Right, right. But anything can be an addiction. And so I poured myself into that to escape from my problems. And the drugs got worse because I was using them to stay awake. I was popping Adderall, like breath mints, using cocaine still. And if I was out of drugs, I was drinking pre-workout to stay awake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so my mind just, I was seeing and hearing things. In January of 2019, it got bad to where I was full, my brain was shutting down, panic, paranoia, was, you know, if you dropped a pin, it sounded like a gunshot going off. My it was just from the lack of sleep, and it was bad. So ended up in the psych ward, and then went to Hopeway, and that started kind of a year long of bouncing around from rehabs and psych wards kind of in the southeast, and got kicked out of all of them. Wow. So treatment, if you're listening and you got someone that is a loved one that needs to go to therapy, if they're not ready to go, it's not worth sending them, because that person needs to be ready and want to make the change, or nothing's going to happen.
Okay.
And that was a problem for me.
You know, you hit on something earlier that I've learned that has a huge effect on men, especially men that are in relationships. You said something to the effect of, your lady said, if you don't go to therapy, I'm going to leave you.
Oh, codependency, 100%. That was me to a T. And so I broke up with a girl, amazing girl, broke up with her in March of this year. We still have a cordial friendship, great Christian gal. And if something happens in my life, she's someone that I feel like I could call and reach out to. But that was the first non-codependent relationship. Everything prior to that, it was codependency. I had a void in my life that I needed to be filled, and that was love. I didn't love myself. So to me, a girl could give me that love, give me that affection.
Right. So the second she was ready to take that love away, as you would look at it, it's almost like, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. And the sad part about it is, as men, I remember writing this one time, that sometimes it takes a woman putting us in a place where she's ready to remove herself from our life for us sometimes to make the changes we need to make. And it shouldn't get to that point, because you're right, it is a codependent attachment there that we're struggling to hold on to, instead of pouring back into what we really need. Because the best thing we could probably need is to step away from that relationship, because we're pouring so much into that relationship that we're not pouring into us the way we need to be poured into. We're not seeking the help we need. We just want to help this because it's in a manner helping us cope with everything that we're dealing with or not dealing with. And so I thought that was
a lifeline.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good point. Yeah.
And you're draining that girl, or if it's a girl that hears this, the guy, you're draining that other individual, because you're suffocating them, and to you, you're not being true to who you are. So you're not doing justice to either one of you. And it took me getting dumped a lot of times and just fighting a lot to realize, like, what am I doing? And to start loving myself, because you can't love nobody if you don't love yourself.
Say it again,
and you
man.
can't help anyone if you can't help yourself.
Right. That's so good. That's one that I find myself telling myself and a lot of other people, but it took me learning a hard lesson that you can't really love anyone unless you love yourself first. You matter of fact, you can't give what you don't know how to give yourself. How can you give anybody else real love? What you're needing from that person, like you said, is you're needing them to complete you, in a manner of speaking. I need you to make me whole because I don't know how to make me whole. But if you leave, I'm whatever percentage you leave me at, and I'm now struggling, so I'm looking for the next high, the next fix, the next relationship. Where are you going? I need you in my life. And so you grasp onto people in order to hold yourself up, because you don't know how to actually pour into yourself the way you need to be poured into. You're looking for it from someone else. And the sometimes the best thing that could ever happen to us is, unfortunately, continue to be dumped until we finally just say, all right, that's clearly not working. I mean, they keep leaving me, maybe it's just not meant for me to be in a relationship. No, it is. It's definitely a relationship you're supposed to be in, just not with another person. The relationship starts with you. You need to be in a relationship with yourself. The love that you're providing that person, everything you're giving that person, you need to give that to you. See how you can start to pour back in and get yourself back to 100 on your own, because you shouldn't come into relationships at a 50%. 50% is only going to mean that, okay, well, I need your 50%. No, you got to build yourself back up to 100 so you can meet that person. Hopefully meet another person that's at 100 that's poured into themselves the same way. But no, that's
because in a relationship, you both need to be 100, but there might be some days where you're giving 70% and she's giving 30%, but that's all she can give that day.
Right.
And then there's some days you might only give 10% and she's giving 90%.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a one-way street. You're both walking that, but you're doing it together.
Yep.
But you can't do it if you're on 25% coming into that relationship, or you're on empty.
Right.
You know, and I was codependent, and some people I know can find love on dating apps. Me, that was a struggle because I was swiping by physical appearance.
Yeah. Well, no, that's how it.
And that's how it's designed. And I was
Right.
looking to see if you were a Christian because I wanted to, you know, be equally yoked.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
what does that mean to you, by the way? Equally yoked.
I wanted
I'm sorry,
I wanted another believer, another
Okay.
Christian, you know, girl to marry, because I was always on those apps. Oh, I'll find my wife on here, but if I don't find my wife or a girl that I can date, you know, I can go on a date with her and, you know, have a cuddle buddy for the night.
Okay, so wait. I'm just curious then. What like, and I know I've always, as a kid, I grew up always hearing, "Hey, you should be equally yoked with somebody," and never quite understanding what that means outside of, well, she should be a Christian and you should be a Christian, and so it makes a perfect Christian match. But it outside of that, I didn't really understand what that entailed or why that was even important. Or what if she's not a Christian yet? What if she plans to be one? What if she's a fan of God? You know, what if she thinks he's really cool and like, I think he's the guy? Like, okay, like, is that good enough? Does that cross her off as like, we're equally yoked now? And it took me, honestly, it took this past year for me to realize that, you know, there are so many different things that God discusses, starting with love, on how we should love each other. And so being equally yoked is bigger than just, well, she's a Christian.
Correct.
More importantly, she understands how God loves. So hopefully she'll love you the way he loves her. And so, you know, everything just started aligning up this year. And then it was like, okay, yeah, I need somebody who's going to love the way I love. And I'm loving the way God loved me. So I would prefer you to understand how God loves and not the way culture or society loves, in order for us to really like now we've got a great foundation. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to butt heads, but you know what though? It's a commitment instead of just a,
And you know how to overcome when you butt heads, and throw it in the white towel that's not an option.
Right.
You know how to work through that.
Right.
And you know, okay, they might need a little bit to calm down, or we might need to talk it out real quick and then separate for a while and then come back or something. But you know how each other works.
Right.
Like you said, how God loves.
Right.
He loves you, he loves her. So you got to love each other how God loves you. So yeah, equally yoked. Yeah. I mean, it's taken me over this last year and a half kind of to figure out, what does that really mean? Because the old me was, she's a Christian, I'm a Christian. Okay, we're good.
Right. I believe we went to the same church. We clearly got the same explanation, and we were just left with that. Okay, well, I'll figure it out from here.
Yeah. So dating apps that was, you know, a place where I could fill that void that I needed, and that was love. Because I didn't love myself, and I needed someone to do that for me. And that's where the codependency always came in. And then, so I was getting dumped because I was still in my struggle, in my addiction, dealing with my depression, anxiety. And then I was getting fired and let go from jobs. You know, I think maybe a year was the longest, and then just got laid off 2 months ago, but that was coming up on 3 years. And that was a job for me to kind of figure out who I was while kind of rehabilitating back into society and figuring out who is Charles, how do I love myself after hitting that rock bottom that I needed. Because basically it was like, I'm a new person.
Right.
I'm 10 years of a roller coaster of addiction and trying to please everyone else and not knowing how to love myself, and didn't know what I enjoyed doing.
Right.
So this last year and a half's been figuring out who I am, and knowing that I'm loved and that I can love myself, and I'm going to be okay by myself because I got God and I got my people who have been with me, and the people like you who I meet. Feeling real comfortable with.
Right.
You know, like something happened I mentioned earlier Saturday, and I felt comfortable enough just talking with you last night about it.
Yeah.
And the old me would have, I'm fine.
But you know what though? We don't have. It's funny how you can almost sense or find people who you're comfortable. Now that doesn't mean that everybody is there, and that doesn't mean it's for every conversation or every group. But when you find your core people, you have that space to say, if I don't talk about this, it's going to tear me up inside. I can't hold on to this like I used to hold on to these things. And so no. I as I tell everybody, I appreciate your vulnerability even when we're not sitting down at this table, because it's hard to find somebody that not only can they be vulnerable with you, but when you're going through something or you're thinking through something, you can say, "Hey, Charles, man, look, you got some time right now, man. I would love. Hey, look, or more importantly, when you do have some time, I would love it if we could talk for a moment, just so I can kind of." I'm working through something, and sometimes I'm not looking for you to give me advice or answers, but I need to process this out loud with somebody.
A lot of times people just need you to listen.
Yes.
And that's something that I struggled with. I used to always want to talk and give advice. Here's how you can fix that. And I've heard this recently, but a lot of times if you're in a relationship, the girl comes to you with the problem. She already knows the answer and the solution. She just wants you to listen. But as men, a lot of us just want to fix.
Yeah.
So I've learned, especially over
that hammer.
just listen. And that's done me a lot of justice just in listening, because I can learn a lot from listening. When you're talking, it's hard to learn.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, no, and you're right. Because we are so quick to want to just like, okay, give me the punch. What do you need me to do? What do you need me to fix? We were born this way, to fix things. So the sooner you get to the punchline, or more importantly, I won't wait. I'm going to just start so do you want me to go beat that person up? Or do you want me to go and handle that for you? Or do you just want me to go and just, I can take care of it? And like you said, a lot of times we just need to give them the space to allow them to process things out loud while we listen. And we sit with them through the things they're going through instead of trying to fix it, because sometimes some things can't be fixed. You just have to sit back and weather the storm with that person and be there without trying to fix or jump out and repair what they're going through in their storm. So yeah, no, that's good.
And that's something I've had to learn, and it hadn't been easy, but as time goes on, it gets easier.
Right.
Because I've seen how much listening can do and how much is done for me.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. There are a lot of people who will listen to this. They may not listen to it till 5 years from now, but they will say, wow, if God can still use him after all those things happen, if God can still take his life and say, you know what, I'm not done with you, then maybe he's not done with me yet either. And so that's why it's so important for our story to be told, because a lot of times people think that, well, yeah, but God's never going to forgive me for the things I've been through, the places I've been, the things I've done. I'm past his grace and mercy. And it's like, yeah, no, understand, he is pursuing you in a way that it's almost like that girl who you can do so much wrong and she's still there to ride with you. She's still there coming after you when you're in jail. She's the one that's coming to bail you out.
Putting money on your books.
Right. She's that one that you're like, no matter what, she has never left me. And that's how I hate to describe God that way, but God is far greater than that woman.
He's looking for an intimate relationship with you.
And he continues to pursue you even when you don't want anything to do with him. And he has a plan for you. It's just a matter of you saying, okay, you know what? I'm ready to die to self. And we talked about, like, you know, how you used to go by Chad, and now you go by Charles. And I'll let you explain that real quick.
Full name, Charles Hite III, and grew up going by Chad. My dad goes by Land, our middle name, and then my grandfather went by Charles, and a lot of his friends called him Charlie. And I was like, people know me as Chad. I've lost a lot of friends because of the lifestyle I've been living. I want people to see, and when they hear my name, they don't associate it with Chad. the past. Kind of like turning a new leaf.
Right.
So I want to go by Charles. So that's the long short of it, basically.
Okay. I can do it.
Yeah.
Well, look, I thank you for sitting down with me, man. I appreciate your vulnerability. I'm sure my community appreciates your vulnerability because it was truly a blessing. I would also like to thank the listeners who enjoyed this conversation in hopes that it truly blessed them in a manner of speaking. I want to definitely give you the floor to have any closing remarks or anything you may want to discuss or leave the listeners with or anything like that.
Yeah. And I would like just to read something just for the listeners who maybe are struggling with addiction or mental health or I don't know, whatever you're struggling with. I wrote a story, and I don't know if you might have read it, but I wrote it February 26th of 2021, and this was 2 months prior to me ending up on life support from an overdose. So it's titled Phone Calls, and it's from the perspective of my mother, or her phone, and just the last phone call that she received. Ring, ring, hello. Hey, it's me again. Is he okay? We need you to come identify the body. Why? What happened? No, no, no. I've been fearing this call. He didn't even make it to 30 years old. Dialing, and then my phone number. Ring, ring. Hey, it's Charles. Sorry, can't come to the phone right now. Leave a message at the beep, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks, and have a great day. Hi, it's your mom. Just got a call to come identify your body and can't believe this day I feared has actually come. I pray this is a dream and I wake up from this nightmare. Why are you gone? What happened? What could I have done? I can't handle this pain and didn't know you had all this pain and suffering. Why couldn't you talk to me? Where did I go wrong? I can't hold and touch you no more hugs or kisses. Don't have to dread the phone call I just got. No mother should have to go through this. So many calls I got from hospitals, cops, jails, and this call I hope I can recover from. But you're my firstborn, oldest leader, and now you're gone. I don't get to have tears of joy when you find the girl to marry and walk down the aisle. Be there to hold your firstborn. Why couldn't I outlive you? What could I have done differently? Why did I have to get this call I've been dreading? This shouldn't happen to a mother. Just know you're loved and we're the best son a mom could ask for. Rest in peace, and I'll see you in heaven. Just know you weren't a burden, and it was a joy to be your mother. Beep, and the phone clicks. So I thought I was invincible, and I even predicted the outcome.
Wow. Well, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I appreciate you leaving us with that. That's truly something for people to really let sit home with them. That is something that may kind of like leave people to really think about like maybe the life they're living. It may resonate with people who believe that is their future, but don't understand what God has in store for them. And sometimes it's a matter of just saying, I believe that this is where I'm headed, but you know what though, God, what is your plan? What do you have in store for me? Because I can't begin to understand or know what I'm doing. At this point, I am winging life. But I appreciate you sharing that with us all. Once again, I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you coming to sit down with me. Once again, I thank all of our listeners for coming to just sit down and hear these stories, these conversations. Hope you were blessed by this conversation. Feel free to leave us any comments, thumbs up. They don't give you an opportunity to put thumbs down, but I'm sure this was a blessing. Can't forget about my team, my son in the background who's holding down the cameras for us.
Shout out to him.
Yes, sir. And looking forward to our next sit down and with you all. So, hey, be blessed. Thank you so much.
Hey, we appreciate you listening today and hope that if you enjoyed the conversation and stories, you will subscribe and listen to past and future content. Feel free to comment, as we would love to read your comments and pray over all of our listeners. Also, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at God's Glory and Men's Real Stories.
We understand as men how the thought of even facing your own story and the pain and hurt that come with that is a challenging task. But we don't want you to feel like you are all alone, because you are not. God has not forgotten you or left your side, and He loves you no matter what you have done. Your healing is important to Him, and we want you to have these free resources that already exist if you're considering giving up or need someone to talk to. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number is 1-800-273-8255. If you need support but are not in crisis, consider reaching out to a warm line if you need to talk to someone. Speaking to someone on these calls is typically free and confidential and run by people who understand what it's like to struggle with mental health. Find a local number by going to warmline.org.